Quick spoiler alert, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of items here, so if you have not played very far in the game, you might want to hold off. When you first bring Preston and the settlers that you've saved from the Museum of Freedom, there are a total of 6 people, including you. It makes very little sense to try to build a wall to protect the entire area of Sanctuary. I mean, it's a really pretty large area. You really just don't have the resources for it. So instead, what I did was walled off a small area, including the player's home, the yellow home to the north of that, the workshop house across the street, and the ruined house to the north of that. This allowed me to make this area nice and livable while I still amassed the resources needed to expand into the rest of Sanctuary as a whole. So first off, let's start with the walls. The keep area has its own separate junk fence wall, and it also has its own 4 guard towers. We'll take a closer look at the guard towers here in a minute. But there's one section of that keep wall that is actually still open to the outside. You can see it here. Because of this one section of wall still being open to the outside, the guard towers of this area are always manned. So since we're already talking about the guard towers, we're going to go on in and kind of take a walk of the interior section of the walls and just look at the guard towers here. Here's the first guard tower, and what I tried to do is make all of the guard towers just a little bit different, a little interesting, but they all share certain items in common, so I'll point that out to you here in a minute. This one's just built on a straight shack foundation. Each of the guard towers is going to have a weapons rack with at least one weapon up there in case somebody has to come up. Each of them has a Minuteman station in order to keep an eye on things. Also, each of them has weapon turrets on top. The 2 that face outward include a missile turret and a machine gun turret. The ones that face inward do not have the missile turrets. When I say face inward, it actually means where they face inwards towards the rest of Sanctuary. Back behind the player home here, we have this small farm. It's actually the second farm that everybody built into following the initial build, and I'll show you where the original farm was shortly. All of the picket fences here are the original picket fences that were in Sanctuary. I have not built a single new one since I started this game, but there were lots of picket fences for use. The only part that I really don't like with these picket fences is that spot right there. I don't like that little section where something can come under, but for now I'm okay with it. So we'll run over to the second guard tower, and you'll notice too that the guard towers all have these red lights. I'll explain that in just a second. Down here I actually thought about turning this into almost a bunkhouse, a couple of sleeping bags or something like that, just for the guards that are stationed on this side. I just haven't decided to do that yet, but I do like that open architecture down there. Now here you can see we still have a few of these gun displays, weapon racks, and we also have a telephone on this side. Now the reason for that is that guard tower over there and this one here, you can easily see your other guard from here. Secondly, you should be able to hear anything. You would also be able to see if the turrets are firing. You'd hear the weapons fire. Therefore, it's not necessary to have a telephone at every single post, but it is necessary to have one spread out relatively. The red lights, the reason I put those on these guard towers is because if you use a red light during the darkest hours of the night, you will actually be able to maintain some of your night vision. It's just one of those things. The human eye doesn't perceive red light the same way as white light. And so it does really allow for you to maintain your night vision, and I know this from experience. Here's our third guard tower, and this is actually just a corner junk fence here, and then I built out with a few of these extra wood walls. And if we go up, this has a much higher up railing system, just basically a half of a steel wall. Also has its own weapon rack with a weapon and a telephone here, because they can maintain visual line of sight with this guard tower in the distance and also hear everything going on there. Let me just say the guard here, really motivated, wants to make sure they've got perfect line of sight to everything. Good job. Back here we've got a Brahmin hanging out, and that's because I built this little Brahmin area. Basically it's slightly covered. You know, normally the Brahmin do actually stay inside of this little pen, but this guy's wandering around a little bit. It's fine. He'll come back eventually. And if we head over this way, this is the original farm for Sanctuary, and you can kind of tell because at that time all I could find were just melons and gourds. So they've got plenty of those, but once it was time to expand out, we moved over behind my house. So up here, this is a slightly different guardhouse design. You can see it's more of a triangle shape. And the reason that I did that was because I have so many plants growing in pretty close that I didn't want to use up any of that extra ground space. But as you can see, this, oh, it's okay, carry on there, sir. You can see that this has a good overview, good line of sight on everything as far as the vendor area of Sanctuary goes. Kind of nice, I really like it. Alright, we're going to head over towards the Sole Survivor's house. I just want to show one more thing, kind of bring it to your attention as we're going. Notice that this area of Sanctuary has its own separate power supply. That's just to make sure that they're safe. If people do, the settlers do all have to come running back to the keep area, they can close the gates and they will still have power, they will still have water, they will still have food. So we're going to head on into the Sole Survivor's house. The first thing I'll take you through is the kitchen. The dining room and kitchen here are pretty much as they were when I came out of the vault. I did obviously add the painting of George Washington crossing the Delaware. Thought that was a nice touch for a Minuteman build. The kitchen is left almost exactly as it was when I first came out of the vault. The reason for that is because it does have the handwritten notes from your wife and the calendar to remind you of the day that everything changed. And other than the fact that it would seem that the general has picked up a bit of a drinking problem, everything else in here is just relatively Spartan. I mean, he's kept his items that his wife had with him. So even the coffee tin over there, the little pan, the bread box, all of this was here. And he just decided to keep all that to remind him of his wife. And the reason that this is so Spartan is because he's not normally going to entertain here. He would normally go up to the Minutemen Northwest Command, the upper level of that building, in order to entertain any dignitaries, you know, caravans, traders, that sort of thing. He would meet them there. This is his home. This is sort of his fortress of solitude where he can get away from everyone else. The living room has been as restored as could be. The stereo over against the wall was a loss, but that's allowed me to put in this terminal, which is connected to a system that I will explain here shortly. Otherwise, pretty much everything is the same. I did replace the original fireplace with this one. It's part of the Burning Campfires and Fireplaces mod. And all the mods that I'm using, I will put a list of them in the description. So let's head on back. I'm going to show you the bathroom. I've done very little with. The reason for that is it didn't need a lot of repair. So admittedly it doesn't look great, but it's in relatively good repair. I did add this little shelf that has, it's from Do-It-Yourself, and it's a mod, and just, you know, has the toiletries that the general uses. And that's about it. Next, we have the Sole Survivor's bedroom, and here he has a small desk set up so that he can work on things with a terminal. He also has a phone, and this telephone is connected to other telephones throughout Sanctuary, including one in the Minutemen Northwest Command, the security guardhouse up front, and the guard towers that surround the property. Got a little chair in order to sit back and relax, just a dresser, and a footlocker. Again, he's not living a very opulent life. This is just his house. You know, it's so keeps it nice enough, but he doesn't need to have too much. In here, we have his weapons locker. This one's easily accessible directly from the bedroom. He can just open the door, grab what he needs, and go. And here is Sean's room. Now, Sean's room has pretty much was originally cleaned up in anticipation of bringing my infant son home. This is going to be another spoiler, so you may want to jump ahead 30 seconds in the video if you don't want to hear this. But once I realized that Sean, my infant son, would not be coming home with me, I pretty much just closed off this room and left it. And that's how it will remain. Just a sad reminder that my son will never come home. Then in here we have a slightly larger weapons locker with a minigun and several other items. I really enjoy Do-It-Yourself. The only issue that I have, and this is actually some of the first times that I used it, was in this building. I really like it. It looks really good. The only issue that I have with it is that sometimes if you use it too much, it begins to look too repetitive. But it's a great mod. So if you get the chance, use it sparingly and it'll look great. Finally, we have this little closet, and it's just a broom closet. Just some items to help clean up, that's all. And, you know, using that broom, I was able to remove all those pesky leaves that are in this place. I just love the fact that they're gone. Makes me so happy. So next we're going to head into the Keep's Armory. Now this armory is not the armory for Sanctuary. In reality, there are weapon stations inside of the guardhouse. There obviously is a rather large armory inside of the Minutemen Northwest Command. This is if Sanctuary is overrun and everyone has to run back to the keep. We have a good supply of guns and ammo and other weapons, you know, even some heavy weapons. We got a minigun and a missile launcher, and we have some ammo for all of that here, including mines, grenades, the whole 9 yards, so that we can defend Sanctuary if we need to. This is more where civilians would come for weapons, if it became a city. Next, we're going to head into the City Hall. This City Hall is a lot like the one that I built in my no mods build, except I was able to crank it up a little bit. So here we have the waiting room, also the living room for the mayor. The mayor, for those who have not watched my no mods builds, is Preston Garvey. Figure if he's going to give me the responsibility of running around the Commonwealth and saving settlements, well, then he can go ahead and watch over this one settlement by himself. He has an individual who's an assistant. That would be this guy right here. And he is in charge of security for this building. He has this short laser musket available if he needs it, as well as, common chores, keeping the place clean. Here we've got a very nicely stocked bar. This is used by the mayor when he's meeting with dignitaries from other towns, leaders such as leaders of the Brotherhood of Steel, that sort of thing. He has a small place where he can eat. And as we head back into the rest of City Hall, to the left there is a bathroom. The door still would not quite fit, even with mods and everything else. So instead I still use the curtain. You can see that I got rid of using flags because now I have curtains to use. They look way better. So the curtain can be pulled for privacy. It's a nice little restroom, even having a nice little shelf with the toiletries that Preston Garvey uses in it. Next, we're going to go to Preston's office. Here it is. Here he can meet with people and discuss issues. He can also take care of his work. There is a phone. And also, I don't know if you noticed, but there's a phone in the Soul Survivor's house as well. And they can talk back and forth about things. And it can also coordinate the defense of the entire settlement of Sanctuary from these phones. He also has his own terminal with several holotapes, which are probably used to keep track of, different records, things like that. There's also a safe back here for him to keep things as necessary. Then we have the City Council chambers. This is where the City Council meets. And they are always reminded that the Minutemen are the ones who have helped them. Now, the way that I play the game, my headcanon for this game, is that the Soul Survivor grew up in the United States as a republic. And what he would like to see is that republic reestablished. Now, for the time being, he doesn't have a Congress or anything else, but he can definitely bring some representative government back to the individual settlements. Each of the settlements will have its own mayor, and that mayor will then report to the general. Now, the general is still in charge of everything. However, he pretty much lets the settlers govern themselves autonomously. He has final say, and he can go ahead and veto anything he needs to that he sees in his sight is necessary. But I really like the idea that instead of just being some sort of a terrible despotism, this allows the people to feel involved. And eventually, when the general dies, he will allow the people to basically elect a general or a president, if you will. And that individual will then lead them, but they will have their rights, almost like a Congress. So the leaders of the individual settlements will all meet someplace else, which I'll end up showing you eventually. It's going to be a while. Now, in here, we have Preston Garvey's bedroom. And he actually gets his own separate quarters right here, where he doesn't have to share with anyone else. It's one of the perks of being mayor, but it is a small quarters. I mean, he's not living the high life here. The main reason for him to have his own separate quarters is so that he is not killed off or taken out by synths, anything like that. And I really like how this whole place has very Minutemen decorated feel to it. Next, we're going to head over to the workshop house. Now, when we first started building Sanctuary up, the workshop house just became the bunkhouse, kind of. Everyone moved in here. Even Preston initially. Preston moving into his own room, that was a much later thing. But here, pretty much everyone else ended up staying. And so we've got several beds throughout the place. Most of them are just sleeping bags on the floor. Some of them are sleeping bags up on top of some bed frames. We do have a few bed frames with real mattresses. That's a very lucky individual. But that's about it. We do have a separate bathroom back in here where people can take care of their hygiene needs and, of course, go to the restroom. And as you can see, this is maybe not the greatest living that someone would have, but it's pretty good. And currently we've got 7 people staying here inside of the main building. Now eventually we got more than 7 people that had to stay here. And I'll show you what we did with that overflow in a minute. This is their kitchen, and you can see we've got some food inside of the refrigerator for everyone. And we also have one of these metal boxes, and these are in each of these settlements. And what I try to do is I'll put irradiated food inside of these boxes. And the reason that I do that is that way that food can be saved for an emergency. If the town, if Sanctuary gets attacked and everybody falls back to this position and there's not enough food to feed everyone, this is their emergency food source. Yep, it's irradiated. It's not maybe the best food you should eat, but it will get you by until we can clear the threat from Sanctuary. So once I got to 7 people living in here, it was pretty stacked. Lots of people. Made it a little tough for everybody to get some space. And we had more settlers coming in. So what I did is this. Here's the carport for the warehouse, or for the workshop house. And all I did was wall that in. And then went inside and built a few more beds. This extended the beds in this building by another 5. And sure, the people that live out in this area probably aren't as happy as the ones that live inside the main area where the toilet's at and everything, but they do have sinks. They have these buckets where they can bring out fresh water so they can wash up, that sort of thing. They have toothbrushes, they've got a glass, hairbrush, soap, so they can fully wash up for bed every night and that sort of thing. And they even have this small little area where they can sit and hang out, talk with each other, just kind of enjoy life. They even have a small food preparation area back here where they can make coffee or cook food in that pan. Finally, when Sanctuary was first coming up, within the first few months after coming out of the vault, we held the first Christmas dinner here in Sanctuary. And that dinner was held almost picnic style on top of that slab, that foundation over there of that building. We had cleared the building and decided we were going to have a nice Christmas dinner. Well, later, once this building was secure and everything else, I thought that it would be a good idea to bring hope back to the Commonwealth. And so what we did was we built the Church of Sanctuary. Now this church, unlike the Church of Adam or the Church of All Faiths, this is a Christian church. The idea being that there are Bibles, there are so many churches throughout the greater Boston area that surely at least a few Bibles survived. And so what I did was build this building. Now, I didn't make it opulent, didn't make it crazy. It is still definitely a church in a frontier sort of town, and definitely in the apocalypse, but I did make it well lit and with lots of windows so that you could look out and see that the world is about more than just you. We have a preacher here who just happened to be a woman who was just very overwhelmed with her love of God, and so we made her the preacher. And then here we've got several sleeping bags, basically just bedrolls for people who are visitors traveling through town and need someplace to sleep. It is also overflow for if everybody has to fall back to this position from the rest of Sanctuary. Here in the back, we have an offering plate. We have some communion bread, actually sweet rolls, and communion wine. And after the offering is received, everything gets put into this cap stash. Now, that money is not used to, we do pay the preacher a small stipend, but for the most part, that money is used to either build other churches or to help individuals who need help and come to town. So that's about it. Wow, what was I thinking? I completely forgot to show you what the terminal and the speakers and the light boxes on the walls are about. So, what I've done here is if Sanctuary is attacked and people have to fall back to the keep, this alarm can be activated. And if it is, you can hear the siren starts going off, and it comes over and gives power to this little interval switch, which flicks back and forth, and that makes the red lights on the wall go ahead and activate, flicking on and off, and it also, you can hear the speakers turning on and off, which is kind of cool. And those lights are in every room in the house, and of course that speaker can be heard throughout the house. So it allows the general, and it's also wired up to the mayor's office. So the general and the mayor can be alerted in this way immediately. I'll have to turn this back on, since apparently they didn't believe that there was really an issue. They may have been right. I do like messing with them though. So if you head back here, there's one thing I'm going to show you about this. If we go into Preston's office, you can see that the light works normally and everything's fine. You can see that it also works normally in his bathroom. And even if we stay right behind this wall here and look, you can see that the light works fine. And the speaker works fine right there. But if you step out, notice how it locks up? I believe that there is a limit to the distance that you can travel and have that electricity switch on and off like that. So because of that, I didn't wire up anything else. I do think it could be very useful for a settlement where maybe it's smaller and doesn't have as much of a spread out area to it. But for this settlement, I think that it's just too big, because originally I was going to do it to every single building throughout Sanctuary. And once I realized there was a length, a limit to the distance you could travel on it, I decided not to use it any further. I do really like how it looks in those two buildings though. And since we've got just a couple extra minutes, I thought I'd show you a few extra things and talk about a couple of items. So one of those things is the way that the streetlights are arranged. I made a very specific choice when I started this build, this way of building things, that I wanted it to be very, very much like how it would really be in an apocalypse. So, with that being the case, I didn't want to try to build a streetlight every 10 feet or something like that. Instead, where all the streetlights are throughout Sanctuary, and it's not just here in the keep, every single spot where there's a streetlight, that is where one was already at, whether it had been knocked over or was still in place. So those have just been repaired and put back in service. The only exception to that is the one right here in front of the Sole Survivor's house. That one was added just so that I could run the power over to my house. Also, each of the buildings now has a fireplace in it, with the exception of the church. So, I'm sure you probably caught them as we were walking around, but I'll just show you. Most of them have it down the center of this hallway. In order to make it as real and immersive as possible, each of the houses has a chimney that comes up right above where the fireplace is at on the inside of the house. And I've turned them all so that the smoke drifts in the same direction from all three of them. Immersive, right? I also rebuilt all of these roofs using, I think it's the pre- and post-war Sanctuary houses mod. And like I said, there will be a link, or not a link, but a list of all these mods in the description below. So that's how I rebuilt the roofs. And I really kind of like, you know, they end up being a little long if you use those, and they stick out from the building a little bit, but that's why I use these posts. I think it looks very nice and well supported that way. And finally, this last thing is just kind of a weird little thing that no one else would ever notice, but I really felt like I needed to put it in there. You could see that I actually placed a bell inside of that tower just so that people would know what time it was for church, you know? 9 a.m. every Sunday. Make sure you come. Plenty of stuff to pray about. And finally, here's a quick walkthrough of the keep at night. I really like the lighting. I think everything looks pretty good this way. I also really enjoy how parishioners will actually come to the church and sit. The only thing that's a little bit weird, a little creepy, is how many of the settlers would much rather hang out behind this sign. I have no idea why they do this. Just one of those weird things about the game. Maybe they're just hiding so they can smoke. At any rate, I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. And if you have, please go ahead and give it a like. And if you've enjoyed more than one of these videos, please think about subscribing. And I really hope I'm going to get better at this as time goes on. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.